All right. Well, hello, everyone. It is Dr. Siobhan Parat here with Relatable, and this is the very first episode of the Made Marriage Show. I am so excited. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the show where I interview real wives just like you about how they make marriage work. Because let's be honest here, we all know that great marriages don't just happen, that great marriages are intentionally made. And the way we make them is by the way we think, is by our attitudes, is how we communicate with each other, our behaviors, our actions. All of that leads to the results that we see in our relationships and in our marriages. And so I encourage you to consider this question. How are you thinking about your marriage right now? Like, how are you thinking? What are the things you tell yourself? What's the story you've created? And how is that thinking influencing the results that you are getting? How is that thinking influencing what you are experiencing right now in your marriage? So that's food for thought. But let's get on with the show, right? I am so excited. This is our first episode, and so I'm so excited to have an incredible woman sharing a little bit about how she makes marriage work. So, Miss Jamika, why don't you introduce yourself to the people and tell us all how you make your marriage work?
Hello, I am Jamika Jones Setzer. I'm from the Washington, D.C. area. And one of the things I would say that helps to make this thing work is to be quick to listen and slow to speak. So to be quick to hear what my spouse has to say and really hear his heart. So hear what he's saying and then hear what he's not saying, and then be able to share afterwards, which means I do my best not to cut him off. That's a challenge. But I do my best, especially in my family. I have the type of family that you got to jump in. You got to, when we all get together and we're having a family event, you got to jump in to be heard. And it's all in love. So sometimes I need to, I do my best to curve that side of me when I'm speaking to him, just to make sure that I really get what he's saying.
Yeah, it's really important. And I love what you said, that point about listening with your heart, really. I mean, there's listening to hear what they're saying. There's listening to respond to what they're saying, which, I think I and everybody else is guilty of that type of listening. But listening with your heart really requires, and that you really seek to have that heart-to-heart connection with him, where you're listening for the emotions, you're listening for his concerns, his worries, his own frustrations, and that you're putting sort of your own thoughts and responses aside to really hear what it is that he has to say to you. So that is incredible. Thank you for sharing that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your love story? Like, I want to know all about you and your husband, like how you met, how you started dating, all of that stuff. Tell us a little bit about your love story.
So there are two stories. Okay, there's my story.
There's always two stories.
And there's his story. Yeah. But he's not with us tonight. So I'm just going to tell my story, which is the real story. Okay,
always. Your story is always the real story.
Always. He and I met through a mutual friend. And we were at the friend's house and we just started talking. He's a musician. My husband's a musician. And so that was the commonality that we shared, was our love for music. Mm-hmm. And so our friendship grew from that place, and we got to know each other. But it was really just a friendship. Above all, I was not interested in dating anyone who was a musician. So, like, even if you played the tambourine, I did not want to date you. I was totally uninterested. No, thank you. but we maintained our friendship because he was a really nice guy, and he
Mm-hmm.
still is. He's a really nice guy. And so he has shared his heart, and I said, well, I don't feel the same way, but he was willing to maintain our friendship, which was good. And then as we continued to develop our friendship, during that time, I actually had an in and out surgery, and I was home and I was resting. It was that week, and it was the night before it was scheduled for me to go back to work. And he said, how do you feel? And I was feeling groggy, and I just didn't really feel up to going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so he prayed for me, and he didn't pray for me like I would pray for him, or he didn't pray for me like he wasn't reciting a prayer he had heard at church. But I felt like he was praying from his heart. And it really embodied his personality and who he is as a nice guy. He was just talking. He was just talking to God that I would feel better and be able to go to work the next day. And the next day, his prayer was answered. I felt better, and I went to work. And it was at that moment that he caught my attention. I said, well, wait a minute. Now, wait a second. He can pray,
He can pray.
and his prayers can be heard.
And his prayers are heard. Yes.
So like that's really when I began to see him differently, and my heart began to change, and I started to entertain the idea of dating a musician. And so we dated for 3 months, and after 3 months, he asked me to marry him. I said yes, and we were married a year later.
Wow. Wow. That is amazing. I love that. I think back to a friend of mine who talked about there was a gentleman who was pursuing her, and she didn't, she just wasn't into him like that. And she had asked God, like, if this is the person you have for me, like, show me him in a new light. Mm-hmm. And it really seems like, that experience with your now husband, praying and seeing him in a different way, really sort of enabled you to take that leap and to relax your requirements that he not be a musician, and look at what happened, right? So I'm looking at some of the comments, and I see people saying that as one person is saying that they can't view. If you can't view, or if you're having problems, just refresh your screen. I know sometimes on Facebook things are a little bit tricky, so just refresh your screen, close it out, come back. But keep those comments coming if you're having any technical difficulties. And if you are seeing everything perfectly clear, can you just put a comment on there too that says, yep, everything's good, keep going. So I won't be distracted by that, because I want to make sure this goes well, because this is great stuff that we're sharing. So if you can see everything, just put a comment in the box and let me know that you can. Okay, so tell me, it's so interesting that you guys, dated for 3 months before you said, yes, I will be your wife, and he asked you to be his wife. What, once you guys actually got married, what would you say was the biggest surprise about being married for you?
Okay, so the biggest surprise.
Mm-hmm.
So
whatever it is, we're ready. We're ready to hear what it is.
Okay, 2 things.
Okay.
When when we were dating, I was living on my own. And so as we prepared for the wedding, I moved back home. And then from my parents' house, Gene and I moved into our own home. So there were 2 things that I had that were like a culture shock. The first one was I realized that I did not have the small little box of safety pins that were located on my mother's dresser that I could go in at any time and get when I needed it. I was devastated.
You were devastated. You were devastated.
Something so small.
Yeah.
That is safety pins. What's the big deal? But I had never purchased safety pins ever. I always just went into my mom's room and got them out of her little crystal dish and kept it moving. But in that moment when I was like, I don't have any safety pins. I don't have a crystal dish. Oh my God, I'm married. Like that hit.
Yeah.
That hit kind of hard. That's something that was very familiar to me. I no longer had daily access to it. And so while it's small, it was pretty big.
Well, and I think it's so powerful that it happened to be safety pins, because when I hear you say that, to me, it's like your safety net was removed, right? There's a consistency, there's a assurance when it comes to our family that, you know, our family is always going to be there for us. Like, they don't really have a choice to not to be. And so when you're married and that sort of foundation of your family of origin is removed from you, it can be a little bit unsettling. And I think, yes, safety pins, what significance does that mean? But when you really sit and think about it, it means a lot. That the safety, the security, the predictability, the dependability that you knew and that you had in your own home, now as you're making a home with someone else, just leaves you sort of like with a blank slate. Like, you're looking on that cabinet and there's like no safety pin there. And now it gives you the opportunity to, you know, create your own little receptacle for safety pins or whatever you're building now with your husband in your own life together. So I love that story. You said there were two things that really surprised you. What was the other one?
The second one, I remember, I feel like this was in our first month of marriage. And I had just finished taking a shower and I was drying off, and my husband came in the bathroom and he just wanted to talk, but the door was open and I was freezing. And I hate being cold.
Out of that shower. Yeah.
In that moment, like, all I could think was, dude, can you close the door? I'm cold. Can we talk about this in like 5 minutes? Like, can you give me 5 minutes? But the way he was so passionate talking about whatever, it was so important to him. I listened and was like, okay, that's great. Okay, thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
OMG, no one told me about this living situation. I mean, you know you're going to live with someone, but to really merge your life together and live with another person and learn what they prefer and what they don't prefer, and when it's a good time to talk about something and when it's not a good time. So eventually I was able to say, hey, babe, like, I don't like being cold. So can you give me 5 minutes or come in? Or, you know, we worked it out where now he doesn't do that now. But like, that was also a culture shock of like dealing with really learning to live with someone and not crush them in the process of when they're doing something that's uncomfortable for you.
Right. I think that's the key thing. It's sort of like, it's always a balance of needs, right? Where it's what you would prefer and what you feel like you need versus what they're looking to you to provide, right? Because in that moment, he was looking for connection. And how easy would it have been, and how many times do we do this as wives, to only focus on like what we need in that moment and to put distance in an opportunity for us to really connect with and create more intimacy with our husbands. So yes, great that you were able to just, you know, chill yourself, and I'm sure just keep your cool and have that conversation, and then find a way to do it. So hello, all of you that are joining, that are writing comments. We're so excited to have you. It looks like we're good with our technology. Everyone can see. That's fantastic. So one of the things that I have come to have such a great appreciation for is how marriage is like the most fertile ground for self-improvement. I feel like marriage is like the self-improvement course of like our lives. And so as you think about the relationship you have with your husband, like your specific husband, his personality, his idiosyncrasies, all of the things that make him unique as an individual, when you think about him and being married to him, how has he and the relationship with him specifically helped you grow and develop into a better person for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like that question. My husband would identify himself as an introvert. I would add the word super in front of introvert. Like he is a super introvert. He likes to be in the comfort of his home. He doesn't like to be around a whole lot of people. He will go Christmas shopping online. I like to go Christmas shopping in the stores at like when it's like a whole lot of people in the store. I get excited off of that. He totally doesn't. And so that's where one of the differences that we have. My mom would say I'm a total extrovert, but I think I'm a social introvert because I do like my quiet time. I do like my alone time, and I recharge by myself, but I do enjoy a good party. So I think this is where we balance each other because, with Gene's way of just wanting to be home sometimes, it requires the spirit of slow down. You know, it requires moments to relax or not go. Or he'll say, babe, you just want to go, 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 go. And I'll say, yeah, you want to stay. So having that aspect of both of it and seeing us together, me seeing us together it's beauty in it, but we're able to balance that so that there are times where I'll stay and then there are times where he'll go. And it's a challenge, you know, like I'll stay when I really want to go and he'll go when he'll really want to stay. But I think it's good because I think there's a time to play and then there's a time for rest. And so I think having those two extremes, it helps to balance it out, to figure out what do I need to, what's my body saying in this season at this moment?
Yeah.
Or, hey, you've been working really, really hard. Can we just step away for a minute? So I think that's one of the things that I've learned or improved in since I've been connected with him, which is just learning how to slow down a little bit. But don't tell him I said this. Okay, this is just between the two of us.
This is just between the two of us. Like nobody else is gonna know. My lips are sealed completely. But I think, you know, the point is what I find so fascinating, right? Is that when you're dating, you find all the things that are similar about the two of you, right? There's like, you have so much in common. That's like what you focus on. And then when you get married over time, you begin to focus on how different you are. And there's so many differences. And Natasha's saying she's telling. She's just and Corey, thank you for joining. Better late than never. #4kids. Yes, you have triplets. I'm so glad that you even made it to watch this broadcast. So, but I think, you know, when those differences come, you have two choices, right? So you can see it as a liability in him. Like, well, why can't you be more like me? Like, why can't you be more social? It's so much fun to be out and about and interacting with other people and getting recharged from that. But what it requires is that you have an appreciation for those differences and that you're mature enough to know that the way you are and the way you prefer things is not the end all be all. And so it's great that you both have this give and take where you recognize this particular difference and you can appreciate and respect and not try to change the other person to accommodate your preferences. So
can I add to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I've thought about this. And so when we were dating, Gene would like to do movie nights which was totally cool. Like, yeah, we can do a movie night. That's so fun. Or
Yes.
I would like to go out and eat. And so he would be like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, we can go out.
Yes.
That's nice. But what I found was post marriage, things are highlighted, things become bigger. So it's not just every now and again when our schedules hook up and we can do a movie night in. No, now we live together.
Yep.
We can do a movie night every night, so everything becomes bigger, everything grows. And I think that's the thing to also remember. And what you were saying about trying not to turn the other person into you, there's a reason why you were attracted. Something about his introvertness attracted me to him.
Yep.
And vice versa, me and who I am, that was an attraction for him. So for me to become like him would be a turnoff. Gene is a giver. He gives and gives and gives. And I remember when we were dating, I was like, oh, he would give the shirt off his back. And then when we got married, I was like, if that man gives the shirt off his back one more time. So things become bigger and they're highlighted because that's what marriage does.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad thing. It's just remembering, just remembering why. Why did I choose him? Why did I open myself to love him? Why did I become vulnerable with him? The very things that may irk me are probably the things that caused me to be attracted to him in the first place.
Yeah. It's so true. And I think it's a symptom or an indication of the places that we need to grow. I think it's like a signal, and we're attracted to that because it's something that's not within our nature, but maybe something that we've been called to experience or grow in or move a little bit closer to. People are saying, love that, remembering the why is so true, and that this is inspiring. So I'm glad. So let me ask you this, marriage is a roller coaster. That's the best analogy I can think of. You have some of the highest moments, you have some of the lowest moments. And there may be people who are watching this broadcast, or people have shared this broadcast with them, and they're at a point in their marriage where like divorce is on the table, where separation is a viable option, where they're just not sure that the differences or the frustrations or the betrayals or the disappointments, whatever the case may be, is just too much for them to overcome right now. And so, what I like to say is that every marriage has their dark moments. And, the difference between those who make it and those who don't are the ones who persist through those moments. And so if you could, speak to, someone who may be considering divorce, or someone who may be at this place of decision where they're not sure if they should separate or not, what might you offer in terms of, your own perspective to that person to consider or to think about?
So the first thing I would say is, can I give you a hug?
Yes.
I would want to ask if I could give them a hug.
Yeah.
Because coming to that place of really considering divorcing or separating from your spouse, that's a tough place to be. And many times there are a lot of reasons why a person gets to that place. A lot of times it's not just one reason, but there's so many reasons. And so the first thing I would want to do is ask her if I could just give her a hug.
Hugs work.
The second thing I would recommend or suggest would be, I would ask her if she has a third party, someone who's not connected to the situation or to her husband or herself, that she could talk to. Sometimes it's just better to talk to someone who's not really close to the situation. Mm-hmm. There are times where you hit a rough spot, and through God's grace, you're able to get through it. But you shared it with people who don't get through it like you get through it. or they don't forgive your spouse as you have chosen to forgive your spouse. And so now y'all done moved on and you're holding hands and loving up, and you look back and your girlfriend is like, boy, bye. Like she's still angry. Not to say she shouldn't be. She may have every right to be angry. But now that puts you in a certain situation and doesn't help you. So the second thing I would ask the person is, do you have a third party that you can speak with? It would be great if the two of you all could go. If he's not in agreement with that, I would encourage her to go. And then the third recommendation or suggestion I would ask her to do is to take 30 days before making a final decision, writing down the pros and the cons of what would life look like after the next 30 days if I choose not to. Just take another 30 days, writing it down, combing it through, and asking, what would life really look like? The thing about divorce, and I've never had a divorce, but I know people who have, and divorce hurts everyone. Everyone involved, they walk away with a little piece of themselves that's gone. And so it's not one of those things where, you can celebrate, but really deep down from the people who I'm connected to who have experienced that, just a little bit of piece of themselves is gone in that process. So the third recommendation that I would say would be take 30 days, comb it through, think it through, write down the pros and cons, and then make your decision.
Yeah. Absolutely. And people are agreeing with your comment there. And I should have put this caveat, if your safety is in danger, if you're being abused in any way, shape, or form, like, we're not talking about those situations. For sure, your safety, the safety of your children and your family is paramount. So if you're in a dangerous situation for yourself, physically or emotionally, you absolutely need to remove yourself from that equation. Give yourself the time and the space to do these things that Jamika is suggesting, as well as, I think, reaching out to a professional in those situations is A1 critical. So thank you for that. So this is a fun question. What advice would you give your single self before you got married? I think a lot of times, women idealize, and so I have still single friends who are like, oh, I want to be married. And it's like, listen, yes, you want to be married, but you really need to work on this first. Like, what would you say to your single self, or any single person considering marriage is something that they need to think about, work on, consider before taking that next step?
I would say to myself, girl, go sit down somewhere. Let's talk. Let's talk right now. I would encourage me to expand your vocabulary. It is very easy to just talk, but you ain't saying nothing. And I think in marriage, to get down to the core of what this thing called communication, you need to expand your vocabulary. You need to work on saying exactly what you mean, like the core, not playing games, not beating around the bush, not saying things like, I sure am thirsty, versus, can you please give me a glass of water? Something that's simple, but it makes a huge difference. That would be one of the things that I would tell myself, get ready to expand your vocabulary. And then the other thing I would tell myself is be ready to do something different. You are not your mother. You are not your grandmother. They've given you great models, but they were not married to Gene. You are married to Gene. So be prepared to do something different. Be prepared to do something you've never seen before and be okay with that.
That's really powerful because I think a lot of times, when it comes to marriage, you bring so much of your own baggage, your own experiences, the own models you had for good or for bad, and you think that's how it should be. And I love your point of your mother wasn't married to your husband. Like, you can't do things the way you always saw them done. Be prepared to do something new. So Jamika, we have been chatting it up, and I'm looking at the time, and it is already 9:30, which is amazing. Let me just ask you two last questions, and then we're going to get to how long you've been married, because that's a fun part of the show. What do you feel are some healthy practices that maybe you and Jean do that you'd recommend to other couples that have really made a difference in your own marriage?
Can you say that again? You broke up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Healthy practices. What are some healthy practices that you guys do that you might recommend to other couples to really make sure they...
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so I would recommend go get an ice cream cone together. And the reason why, yes. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes we have lofty, great ideas, like going to Aruba or going out the country or going to Brazil. That's on my list. I really want to go to Brazil. Or going to a really fancy restaurant or going to see a show. Like, we can have a great list. And sometimes life gets in the way of accomplishing those things. Time, schedule, children, time, work, time, you're tired. But if you can just scale it all the way down and say, hey, let's go get some ice cream. Whether it's from the local ice cream shop or a fast food restaurant, and you get that ice cream and you sit outside or you sit in the car and you talk and you laugh and you remember it's the small things that matter most. So, we can have the big dreams and the goals. Those are important. My husband is an entrepreneur. So big dreams and big goals, those are very important. But we need to be maintained and really honor ourselves and our spouses and our situations by the small things. It's the beauty of the small things that really get us through, especially those tough times. I think McDonald's or Chick-fil-A has like a 99-cent ice cream cone night or something.
Probably both, but I'll tell you, just last week, ironically, my husband and I got an ice cream cone at McDonald's, and it was delicious. Yes. But I think your point is so well made that, when it comes to sort of like trying to reconnect and being intentional about date night or whatever it is that you're trying to do to remain connected and bonded to your husband, that it doesn't have to be some big production. You don't need a weekend getaway to reconnect. You don't need some fancy night out. But something as simple as an ice cream cone, or even getting some ice cream from the grocery store and sitting on your couch and watching a sitcom together, like those moments. And I always like to say, it's those little tiny daily deposits. It doesn't have to be a big production, because a big production is something that you really can't sustain. It's not something that's going to be consistent. What you're looking for is those consistent daily deposits, the things that you can do that are fun and lighthearted and easy to nurture that relationship. And I love this example of the ice cream. Back to the basics of dating, why you fell in love from the beginning. Absolutely. This is good stuff. We're getting great comments. So this is the part of the show, right, where I intentionally ask my guests not to say how long they've been married, because I think a lot of times when we're listening to other people, we judge, oh, they've only been married 2 years. They don't know what they're talking about. Or, oh, they've been married for 20 years. I have to listen to them. marriage, it's like your marriage is your marriage. And whether you've been married for 2 minutes or whether you've been married for 20 years, you have something of value to contribute to the conversation, and you have something to learn from the conversation. Marriage, like I said, is like an ever living course in personal, spiritual, intellectual, emotional development. And so what I want the audience, the people who are listening right now, to do is just place in the comments like your best guess of how long you think this wise and insightful Jamika has been married. So you can just put your comments in there. I'll see. I think there's like a slight delay on Facebook with that. So while you guys are putting your comments, your best guesses for how long you think she's been married, we're going to reveal that in a moment. And what I'll just share in the meantime, while those comments are coming up, is this conversation, right, is one of the conversations that I love to have with women, because I feel like, we don't talk enough about marriage, that when you're, when you're in this marriage roller coaster, that you don't really have support. You don't have encouragement. You don't have the stories of other people, just to know that sometimes you're just not alone, and that the things you're experiencing, other people experience, and the things you're going through, other people have gotten through. And so this show is really just one of those vehicles that I'm grateful and blessed to be able to have to share these conversations with you right here on social media. But I also want to let you know that if you are in the Washington, D.C. area, that on July 29th, I am hosting the Real Wife Life event, which is a wonderful afternoon for all of us as wives to get together and to have these conversations where we walk away encouraged, where we walk away inspired, equipped, and empowered to continue making our marriages the best they can be. So if you are in the DMV area, I encourage you to check out the events tab right here on the Relatable Facebook page. You can find all the details about the event there, and I would love to meet you in person. And hopefully Miss Jamika will be able to make it. It is a major birthday for her that weekend, so she may be otherwise obligated, but if she's not, I know that she will be there with us. So now let's get to see what you guys have said. So people have guessed. You said plus there. You know what, Jamie? I think you already know the answer. So I don't know, Jamie. You said they're celebrating their anniversary, and they are. So, I'm on Facebook today and I see a post, and it was Jamika's anniversary yesterday. So I feel like, whenever I hear the word anniversary, I just have to bust out with, do you know what today is? It's our anniversary. Now, I can't sing. Like, I have other skills and talents. Singing is not one of them, although I like to do it all the time. And it was yesterday, so happy anniversary, Jamika. You. I'm so curious to see what people think. Okay, 12 years, 10 years, 15 years. Jamie says not fair because I know her. Thank you, Jamie, for being, a woman of honor and integrity. Jamie, well, no, Jamie, I see, actually. So there's Jamie Hopkins and Jamie Thomas. Okay, Jamie Thomas says 13. Janine says 5. Marion says 8, 3. Okay, so this is so fun. Let's see. So Miss Jamika, tell us, how long have you been making your marriage work?
I have been married for 13 years and 1 day.
13 years and 1 day. So congratulations. Congratulations. You have so much wisdom to share with us. And I'm so, so grateful that you took the time to be a part of the show and to share your story. Let me just ask you, do you have like a parting word, quote, scripture, piece of advice, or something that you'd like to leave with all the ladies that are tuning in to us today?
Yeah. One, hang in there. You can do it. You have what it takes to do this. Okay? So hang in there. 2, be gentle with yourself. There's a lot going on, not just in your marriage, but there's lots going on in the world and in our families. So be gentle as you merge between what you thought it was going to be and what it actually is. And then the third thing is let your light shine. You may be in a cloud of darkness right now, but the light always outweighs the darkness. So let your light shine.
Well, thank you so much, Jamika. And again, happy anniversary. Thank you so much for being a part of this show. And I encourage all of you that are watching to share this with your own networks right here. Let people know about what we are doing here to just elevate happy marriages, to encourage us all along the way. And I will be back with you next Monday. Same time, same channel with another featured wife, and we'll be having this wonderful conversation about made marriages, how to make marriage work. So thank you all so very much. Have a great evening, and I'll be back with you next week. Bye-bye.